Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you have been asking me to react to the new Britney Spears documentary on Netflix called Britney versus Spears. So let's get to it. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's watch.
Whether the conservatorship would end and whether her father, Jamie Spears, would be more lenient with her privileges. Oh, man. Yeah, it's just like, she gets an allowance, she's got privileges, and her daddy is in charge.
That's the patriarchy.
Right, absolutely. That this could absolutely be a reflection or outgrowth of what we will call the patriarchy, which is the socio-cultural, political, historical premises that support that older white men are in control and intelligent and capable, and women are not capable. Women are frivolous, overly emotional. You don't hear it so much these days, but you still hear it sometimes, where women shouldn't become the president of the United States because, they have too many emotions, or, that time of the month. That's all propaganda to uphold white male privilege and power. And this could absolutely be a manifestation of that. It's one thing for the father to say, I want total control over Britney and all her money. It's another thing when you have a system that is, what we've seen so far, completely dominated by older white men, to say, just buy into it. Like, oh, yeah, good. Yeah, it's good to have a strong man in control. It's this frivolous, slutty girl who doesn't understand, she's, look at her and her little brain. She doesn't understand things, and it's better that a white man controls all that. Yes, that is the patriarchy. We could absolutely see that influencing people, biasing people. There have been countless examples of this, countless examples of how the patriarchy and works in a system to gaslight and oppress and control women. Absolutely.
Which included that Jason Trawick's presence was, quote, mandatory. And then the big bombshell is that we have direct evidence that her medication, the medication that she liked to take, was increased if she worked.
There's different dosages on quote-unquote non-work days and work days.
Okay, so they're referring to documents about dosages of medications. I would love to find out what those medications were, what those dosages were. I'm not a prescriber, but I am qualified. I've taken enough courses and have enough supervised experience to consult with patients regarding their medications as a support person in the prescribing with the medical professional. So I do know enough to, not a lot, medications are pretty complicated, but I know enough to be able to comment on it. Maybe we'll find out what that is. But I also wonder if they're not going to disclose it because they don't want Britney's health information to be disclosed to the outside world. Because they keep revealing a little bit, but not a lot because presumably there's a lot of detail in this document. But maybe they'll say, because that'll help us to at least understand what the prescribers are thinking she suffers from. So let's see what they say.
The next page.
On the one hand, Jamie and others on the team valued the benefits of stimulants for Britney's performance.
Okay, so stimulants, it's like Adderall, Ritalin, this kind of thing. That will help with brain function if you have ADHD. It can also just help you to stay awake and perform well. There's other reasons for stimulants, but there's also abuse of stimulants for performers, because if you can jack yourself up on a chemical, it will help you to perform. But there are consequences to sleep, to cognition, to other kinds of issues, mood issues. You can become addicted pretty easily. So given everything that we've seen, there's a possibility that the medical team, either knowingly or unknowingly, was prescribing medications for the effort of money production rather than actual medical need. I would like to think that the prescribers would not do that. Other prescribers I know would never do something like that. But given the patriarchy, given the control, given who's in control of the money, for example, Michael Jackson, he, it seems, was paying a doctor to administer substances to himself that were not indicated. And when, Michael is saying, look, I want you to give me this, who knows, but it seems as though he was telling the doctor, I want this, I want that. And you had an unscrupulous physician who was like, okay, well, you're paying me my money, so sure, I'll give you that. Even though most physicians in that situation, no, like that's too much of that. That'll kill you. There are other ways to get where you want to go regarding sleep or mood or whatever. And then he died. It's not unheard of that you have prescribers doing things motivated by money rather than by medical need.
The conservatee, Britney, has refused to engage in any business activities, including making a single non-performing appearance at a local pop-up store dedicated to the conservatee, where minimal effort was required, resulting in the estate being required to refund the advance it had received in the amount of $1 million.
The conservatee's lack of cooperation in her own financial well-being and preservation of her continued stature as an iconic artist has deteriorated rather than improved.
Wow. If that is true, if that document is real, and if I'm understanding it right and they're interpreting it right, that is interesting. Now, whether maybe that was because some of these documents are, hundreds of pages long, and this is just one data point, and there are more robust data points. But at the very least, what appears to be happening is the conservator, the father, is saying, we are further justifying our control over this human's life, Britney, because she refused to tour. She refused to perform and lost us a bunch of money. That's slavery? I mean, she doesn't have to work another day in her life. She doesn't want to. She's got enough money to retire. So, yikes, right? Interesting. Which, given everything else we've seen, I think it's absolutely possible that that's what's happening here. And the fact that if that is true, if we're assuming correct things here, the fact that the court wouldn't just be like, whoa, dude, no. The fact that you wrote this paragraph means you're not fit to be a conservator. You're claiming, one, that she has a disorder that prevents her from being functional in society. She's a danger to herself and other people, or she can't manage her own money. So you're claiming that. And then two, you're claiming she can work. And three, you're saying because she chose not to work, which she's a grown woman, she can decide if she doesn't want to work or not. The conservatorship doesn't dictate you can enslave a human being. That's not the purpose of a conservatorship, as far as I know. There's something wrong here. We need someone else to come in here and look at this thing. Who knows if there's more context to this, but the way it looks is pretty damning to the father.
My hands and wrote in length what I had been through the last 4 months before I came there. The people who did that to me should not be able to walk away so easily. I'll recap. I was on tour. My management said if I don't do this tour, I will have to find an attorney, and by contract, my own management could sue me if I didn't follow through with the tour. It was very threatening and scary, and with the conservatorship, I couldn't even get my own attorney. So out of fear, I went ahead and I did the tour.
Wow. So just imagine that. You are being asked to go on tour. You're like, I don't really feel like it. I'd rather do something else. And the management says that we can sue you if you screw us over here. I think that that's actually common if you sign up with a management company and they pay a bunch of contractors in advance and set all the tour dates or whatever, and you just back out at the last minute. I think that can happen. But we could imagine a situation where she wasn't even involved in those conversations to begin with and was like, well, did anyone ask me if I wanted to go on tour to begin with? Anyway, so they say, we can sue you. And then she's like, okay, fine, I'll get a lawyer because I never agreed to go on tour, to be my guess. But then she's like, oh yeah, that's right. I can't hire my own lawyers because my dad is in control of everything. Because the judge has determined that a report from a psychologist found that I am unfit to hire my own lawyers. So I don't get an advocate. I don't get to participate in the legal system. Yeah, wow.
Choreography myself. I wasn't good. I was great. They said, if I don't want to do the New Vegas show, I don't have to. It was like lifting literally 200 pounds off of me. He immediately the next day put me on lithium out of nowhere. He took me off my normal meds I'd been on for 5 years. And lithium is a very, very strong and completely different medication.
Right. So this is the statement that she was giving the court that was leaked. And I remember reacting to this. And so you can, listen to me reacting to that in the past. But when you take all the evidence, at least as it's spun on this documentary and other documentaries, and you hear her statements, it just looks like a complete gaslighting, over-control, patriarchal, not only the father, but the system. It's one thing, like I said, it's one thing for the father to want control and to convince himself he's doing what's best for her and to be motivated by money. It's another thing for the court system, the government, and all the medical professionals, all the psychiatrists, all the psychologists, all the lawyers to also participate in it. Now, I will hold out that we have, as the public, no idea what is actually happening. And if we actually did, we'd be like, well, okay, actually, maybe there is some justification there. We're only getting the spin of the information on one side. As far as I can tell, this documentary has no one standing up and saying, well, actually, here's what, because they can't because of confidentiality or they don't feel like they need to or something. So who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if we found that there was some serious shenanigans going on, given what we've seen from these documentaries and from press reports.
Just maybe I said that enough. Maybe I might become happy because I've been in denial. I've been in shock. I am traumatized. But now I'm telling you the truth, okay? I'm not happy. I can't sleep. I'm so angry, it's insane, and I'm depressed. I cry every day, and the reason I'm telling you this is because I don't think how the state of California can have all this written in the court documents from the time I showed up and do absolutely nothing. Ma'am, my dad and anyone involved in this conservatorship should be in jail.
So, as I said when I reacted to this the first time, I try to be as objective as possible. And the documentary and all the documentaries are trying, I think, to, manipulate, they're trying to spin it in a certain direction. They're trying to make a case that it's, at the very least, slightly unjustified, if not completely unjustified. And that's absolutely possible. There seems to be a lot of indications that the level of the conservatorship, the length of it, and the fact that the father retains total control and has, the ability to pay her lawyer and not pay her lawyer, all that is, highly suspect. But I do want to hold out for the possibility that we have a lot of people who aren't being interviewed because of confidentiality or lack of access, probably given the fact that a court has signed off on the conservatorship repeatedly, that she has demonstrated behavior that has caused determinations to be made that she is absolutely a danger. We've heard talk about lithium and other medications. Now, it could be just an effort of gaslighting and an effort of control. But if I take away the fact that I like Britney Spears as a person, she's a fantastic public figure, performer, it's hard not to like her. And if I just take myself away from that and say that I heard of a client who was saying these kinds of things, I would say, well, there's a possibility that on the other side of this, on the other side of the confidentiality wall, there's pages and pages of evidence demonstrating that she should definitely be on medication. She should definitely be listened to. I mean, if you're not in that world where someone has episodic mental health issues and can become highly problematic to themselves and other people, it might be hard to imagine what that looks like. And so let me give you like a scenario that I've seen. And this is fictionalized to protect, the confidentiality of people. But so you have a woman who seems okay. She's taking her meds. Everything seems okay. And over time, she's like, yeah, I don't think I need these meds anymore. I don't like the side effects. So she starts to cut back. Maybe she tells her prescriber, maybe she doesn't. And her symptoms start to slowly creep back. She starts to get a little manic. She starts to get a little delusional. But you don't really notice it because she's always a little odd anyway. And she knows kind of how to hide it. And one night, she doesn't come home. And she's like, oh, no, I just was out looking at the stars or something. You're like, oh, okay, well. And then a couple days later, the police call and say she has been wandering up and down the highway talking about how aliens are going to save her from the FBI who are reading her thoughts or something like that. And you, as the caregiver, as the family member or whatever, were complicit in allowing this, or didn't do anything to try to prevent this person from doing this. And then you look into it and you find that she went into her bank account and she spent all her money. She had sex with a bunch of random people, which can happen sometimes when people have these sorts of episodes. She fell down a flight of stairs and broke her ankle, but she, put a bunch of duct tape on her ankle to, because she didn't want to go to hospital because that's where the CIA were watching her. She alienated a bunch of people at work. She lost her job. Just a total train wreck because you, as her support person, didn't try to do something about it, which could have been, hey, are you taking your meds? And she's like, yeah, I'm taking my meds. Well, let me check because there seems to be a lot of pills in here. And she's like, well, actually, I've been cutting back. Well, you shouldn't do that. You can't control me. Now, what do you do? It's really a difficult situation. But, these things happen all the time. In your town, there are, there's a percentage of people who are having these issues. We just don't know. There's a possibility that for Britney, she absolutely has these kinds of things. And the conservatorship has both a reason to highlight those things to the court, but a reason not to release that to the public because they're trying to generate money. And if they release that to the public, then, the money train might come to an end. So I'm not hearing anything that contradicts that. I'm only hearing things that indicate that some shenanigans could be happening. I'm hearing indications that Britney doesn't want her father in control, which makes sense, particularly if their relationship was kind of strained to begin with. But I'm not hearing any indication that demonstrates that Britney does not actually suffer from a legitimate mental illness and episodic episodes, mental health episodes, symptom episodes, that justifies the medication, that justifies the conservatorship. I just don't know. It's possible that it doesn't exist, but it's possible it does. And we just wouldn't know because no one is there to tell us, the real situation. We saw that dementia diagnosis early, but that could have been changed, in the future. They're going to well, actually, that was just a temporary diagnosis, a placeholder, if you will. Later on, we diagnosed her with this and this, who knows? And I know that bothers some people. They're just like, how can you say that? She's innocent. She's being controlled. It's possible. Absolutely. I will, hold out for that. That when I first started watching this, I was mainly like, well, because the other thing is I've been on the side of where the person who has the mental illness will come to me and say, I'm being controlled. And then when I look into it later, I'm like, oh, well, there were reasons why people were trying to control you because you're a danger to yourself. And then later on, you're like, thank you for controlling me because if you've ever been through a manic episode or a delusional episode of some kind, a psychotic episode, when you come out of it, one, it's traumatic to know that your brain can just do that. But two, if you had a support system who, staved off major consequences, protected you from yourself, you're very thankful that those people were there. And you will go to them and say, thank you for protecting me from myself. And next time it happens, by all means, do what you got to do because when I enter that state, God knows what I'm going to do. By the way, I think I'm a little bit stuffed up from allergies, if you can't tell, so it's hard for me to talk. But so who knows? And I know that it's distressing for fans to think that maybe there's a legitimate reason why Britney is under the conservatorship. I know that feels painful on some level, but it's still possible. I'd love to know the real situation as a citizen, as a fan, as a curious citizen, but we might not ever have that information because it's confidential. And we might just have to live with that ambiguity. I will have to live with the ambiguity of like, well, I mean, kind of looks like this, but the documentaries are spinning it in this direction. We're not hearing from anyone really on the other side. There seems to be some shadiness on the other side, but there could be some truth. You know, you can have both things. You could have the conservatorship could be justified and the dad could be corrupt. Both could be true. I just don't know.
When I spoke to you, made me feel like I was dead, like I didn't matter. And I'm telling you this again, so maybe you can understand the depth and the degree and the damage that they did to me back then. It's embarrassing and demoralizing what I've been through, and that's the main reason. I've never said it openly, and mainly I didn't want to say it openly because I honestly don't think anyone would believe me.
Right, and just hearing her say it is chilling. To think that she is a super famous person with this huge platform, and that she has been proven to, life has proven to her that no one will listen to her, no one will believe her, that everyone is convinced that she's not right in the head and that she doesn't know what she's talking about, or she's incompetent in some way, or frivolous or something. That I believe, regardless of what the situation is, and that is just not okay. That there's even if there is a reason for the conservatorship, it does look like there is something rotten, that there's too much control, way too much control over little things in her life, and way overstepping regarding the assumptions about her lack of incompetence, it seems like. And yeah, so hearing her talk about it, you just really have to feel for her.
I feel ganged up on, and I feel bullied, and I feel left out and alone. And I'm tired of feeling alone. I deserve to have the same rights as anybody does by having a child, a family, any of those things. And that's all I wanted to say to you. And thank you so much for letting me speak to you today.
Yeah, it's chilling. Yeah, I literally have chills thinking about her. It's interesting because I heard her say this statement before, but when they have the swelling of the music, it really gets to you, that you have a human being who is being controlled by a man, her father, and you have a governmental system and a industry that is complicit. It's like a Twilight Zone episode or something. It's really awful. I mean, just imagine that somebody's opinion is that there's something wrong with you such that you can't even advocate for yourself, that you're so disabled mentally that you can't think for yourself, you can't act on your own behalf, and that this other person has your best interest in mind. And so when you raise your hand and say, I don't like this conservatorship, they can say, well, we have this document that says you actually know nothing and can say nothing, and your judgment is always questionable. So you objecting has no weight. And then you say, can I have my own lawyer? I don't like my lawyer. We have a document here that says that you're so mentally unstable or unable that you can't even judge that, so the court will not listen to that. Just imagine that we have a document here that allows me, and I'm getting tons of money to, buy this decision. I have a document here that says that you have no legal rights. You don't even have a voice. Not only do you not have rights, but you don't even have a voice. You don't even have a mind. Your thoughts are not even valid. You can't complain because every opinion that you have is, unless it agrees with what I think is best for you, it's just completely invalid. Just imagine that. I mean, that's the way it looks, right? I mean, huge yikes. Huge yikes. Interesting. So on September 7th, which was, just last month, Jamie Spears formally asked to be removed from his role as conservator, and probably from, pressure from the outside, I don't know, and recommended the conservatorship be terminated. There will be a determination if the conservatorship should be ended. So looks like maybe it's happening. I mean, if Jamie Spears formally submitted saying, I want not only to be removed, but I don't want it to happen. I don't think the conservatorship is necessary anymore, then great. And are we seeing justice because of fans? I mean, because all the documentaries, as far as I can tell, are being made because fans have been speaking out for years now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. If it is removed, how does Britney fare into the future? Is everything totally fine? Or do we see some public evidence of what the conservatorship was trying to prevent? Who knows? The other possibility is that the conservatorship traumatized her so much that she will have symptoms that are public later on, and the conservatorship should never have been in place, or should have only been in place for like 6 months or something. And because of the trauma, now she has issues. Who knows? But it's interesting. So I didn't know that this happened. Maybe y'all knew that the conservatorship might end soon. So I guess good for Britney. All right. Well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.